Hi, my name is Elle Billing. I am a chronically ill queer femme, and I'm tired. I'm here this episode and every episode to dig at the roots of our collective fatigue, explore ways to direct our care in compassionate and sustainable ways, and harness creative expression to heal ourselves and our world. And welcome to HORF, Radical Care in a Late Capitalist Hexscape. My guest on this episode is Isabel Abbott. Isabel Abbott is a private investigator, a chronically ill, dynamically disabled, neurodivergent queer. Among their many projects and writing communities, Isabel writes a newsletter titled Useless for spoonies, autistics, crips, sick folks, and all those who have been found useless and therefore disposable. Useless is their ongoing love letter to us, to those who have been left behind, to the magic of the useless. As part of Useless, Isabel hosts monthly spoonie calls for autistics, spoonies, crips, and sick folk, where we can get together and just have a safe place to talk. Hi, Isabel. Welcome to HORF.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad that we could get together. We've had to reschedule a couple times, but that's crip life, right?
Yes, exactly.
We're on spoonie time.
Yes, always.
Before we hit record, we were joking about, TV shows and picking up accents and affects from them. And it reminded me of this thing my sister did. ADHD brain is like hanging on to it really hard right now. She had a ghost in one of her houses that she lived in.
Okay.
She named it Gary and
yes.
To make herself feel better about it. And she had this whole backstory. She's like, every time she talked about Gary, she did this like mid-Atlantic, mid-century accent thing. And she's like, well, Gary doesn't like to come out of the closet, but he's a pretty solid Kinsey 6. And he just likes to mess with my clothes and my jewelry. But as long as you tell Gary goodnight, he doesn't really cause too much mischief. He just seems to upset the dog. Like, good night, Gary.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
It was so great. Yeah, so he's my closet ghost, but you know what we say about that. Like, my sister's like the most hilarious person I know.
To come out, yes.
Yeah, and so when she moved, I said, so did Gary move? Nope, he's still firmly in the closet. Which just, how inside jokes with family, just you add layers and layers and layers and layers. When we were in high school, my mom was trying to get my sister to come out. And my sister's like, I'm not gay, Mom. She's like, pretty sure I need to go on birth control, though. Meanwhile, I was very, very closeted. And my sister's like, really, I was just like guarding the door for you.
Right.
For you. So if Mom thought I was gay, it was fine.
Yes. It was just a misread in the wrong direction.
Yeah, she just had us flipped. So the whole thing about, I just like to let people stay in the closet until they're ready, about Gary, and with Gary the ghost, and it just was like a layer on top of layers.
I find too that there's something about, like in my family, like the neurodivergent brain that really latches onto TV shows and then mimicking.
Yes.
So we take on entire personas from the TV shows we watch and then all interact with each other based upon those.
That's my entire life.
It's exactly, but it's a lifetime of mimicking.
Mm-hmm. Yes, others. And none of us were diagnosed as neurodivergent until like the last 2 years.
Exactly, and now it all makes sense. It's like, right, that piece. We just do, and then it's like why we start talking the way whatever TV show we're watching, it takes over our life. It becomes a special interest. Then we all start talking in that way. Exactly that. We have relationships with characters that don't exist.
Yeah, that's normal. Right?
That's totally. Well, it's our normal. Yes.
It is absolutely our normal. My mom once said, well, more than once, but multiple times, has said, I always just thought we were normal. I was like, Mom, I'm not going to necessarily validate that because I've always known we were very strange. I'm sorry that like you had to have that bubble burst at some point, but no, we're not normal.
Yep.
And now she's to the point where she's like, I had no normal children. I was like, correct.
Correct.
None of us are normal. All three of us are very bizarre, but we're thriving. So well done, you. Anyway, I mean, we can just prattle on about TV shows probably for 40 minutes because clearly they affect our life very deeply. Yeah, we watch a lot of TV because we don't go anywhere.
Precisely.
Yeah. But I do have some questions, and we've talked about them a little bit before. So this is a care-centered podcast. And so I was very excited to have you agree to be on here because I love everything about you. So I'm excited to get to the questions too. So my first question I ask everyone is, how have you received care this week?
I find receiving care sometimes tricky. Oftentimes, the most caring act someone can give me is to leave me alone. So I receive care by oftentimes, which is the care I've received this week, which is I'm in an apartment right now, completely by myself. There is no stimulation. There are no other human beings. There aren't even any animals. I get to sleep when I want to sleep, work when I want to work, do what I want to do without the stimulation of a lot of other people, bodies, routines. And I do have people in my life and family that I live with sometimes, that I love, that I care for and want to be with, and do better when I'm not with them all the time. So it is for me receiving care when they say, bye, we'll see you in a few days. And I get to come here to this other place, this apartment share that I have, and get to have what I need, which is sort of a version of a sensory deprivation. It is profoundly caring that I give to myself, but it is also something that I experience as others offering. I feel cared for in having.
That's really lovely. You know, where I grew up, in the Midwest, Upper Plains, care is often non-consensual.
Yeah.
And it's like, let me do this for you.
Yes.
And it's not always what we need. And we have to worry about hurting feelings when we say no, thank you.
Yeah.
And so having consensual care and having sometimes that care being the absence of people and things is really lovely. And
it is. I can hold or appreciate the ways that might not feel a certain way to others, that doesn't give them the sort of hit of chemical hormone feelings that they have associated with caring, right? That they're used to a certain feeling of like, that makes me feel good, or it makes me feel connected when I care for someone. When I do something for them and then we're in some sort of physical close proximity, or I feel closer in the act of caring. And so I think oftentimes when folks, if they really do listen to me, when they do care for me, it may not give them that feeling. And it doesn't mean I don't experience it as being cared for. So it does require a lot of communication, like you're saying, a lot of consent. And I have to be believed. Am I going to be believed that I really experience it and feel cared for? They may not feel it as I feel close and connected, which is what they're used to associating with caring for someone. And it doesn't mean it's the only kind of care I want to receive. Of course, there are times where it's like, even within my illness, there are times where having someone do things for me is a form of care, and I'm really grateful. But in this particular way, it is one of the most caring acts, and I find it socially not recognized as such.
Absolutely. I think that you hit a really important point there, where we see caring as do. I was just reading, I don't remember what I was reading, because I read a lot of things from lots of different places about the difference between the golden rule and the platinum rule.
Yes.
where the golden rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And the platinum rule is do unto others as they would have you do unto them. Like actually find out what people need.
Yes. Yeah.
So you mentioned, you're alone in this apartment. You get to sleep when you want and work when you want.
Mm-hmm.
So that's hashtag goals. Yeah.
Right. Because it's just the piece around knowing that, like, even if I say I'm in a bed with someone or in a room with someone, it's like, of course, I'm impacting that person and I'm mindful or I'm aware of that. Mm-hmm. So then it's like, if I'm like, I'm awake again, it's like my sleep is all disrupted. And then it's like, well, now I'm disrupting someone else's sleep. And I care about them, so I don't want to. So it's like even removing that anxiety. It's not that I want to remove that person. I just need some times and spaces where I can just have the sleep cycle I have and not have the added piece of it impacting someone else, and just get to have the experience I'm in and carry on. And without that piece of it, I also think in being autistic, there is a part of me that is always aware of being observed when I'm with others, and I feel just a different experience when I'm just entirely alone that can be relaxed in a different way. So I get to kind of, particularly if there's like burnout and stuff, I can kind of recharge differently.
Yep. So are you working on anything right now, or are you just recharging? Like, is a creative practice part of what you're doing right now?
No. I kind of wish, and no. I would say I'm still recovering from pretty significant burnout. And I think that is personal and collective. I think COVID impacted a lot of folks in a lot of different ways, and I was not exempt from that. So it placed me in not my, by any means, ideal living or working situation. So it really intensified what was already sort of moving towards some autistic burnout and a significant amount of overstimulation. And there's just a significant, for me, need for rest, repair. I wouldn't say that there's aspects of my life that aren't creative, but they're not project-based right now.
That makes sense.
So it's like things that I enjoy are like, I'm gonna like water my plants, or work on this little thing over here, and it feeds that part of me that wants, but they feel more like puttering. That's where the creative part of me lives right now, is in these tiny little things. But the part of me that used to have projects I think it will come back. It's not there at this moment because the need for rest is so great.
I get that. I really resonate with the part about watering your plants. When I moved into my parents' house, I was suffering from really severe burnout. And one of the first things I did was buy a bunch of plants because I needed something to be, well, for one, North Dakota was in an extreme drought and everything was really dry. And I needed something living that I could take care of. But I have my dog, but I needed something else that I could like just really tangibly nurture and grow. And it got to the point where my dad was like, "Are you turning the house into a jungle?" I said, "I'd like to." And my mom at one point, she was like, "No more new plants." I'm still under a moratorium of no new plants. So like every month on the full moon, I bring home a bouquet of cut flowers. Yes. So like there's something different. And I've gotten around the moratorium by propagating the plants I already have.
I love it.
Because I feel so refreshed when things are growing. And I know I get that from my dad's side of the family. They're farmers. My grandma was an avid gardener and I was really close with her. And I feel connected to her. She passed away a few years ago, but I feel connected to her and to those relationships and to that part of my life, my roots, I guess, when I'm growing things. And even when I don't have a lot of energy to do other things, I can at least take care of my plant.
Yes.
And that is life-giving. I mean, in both directions, I guess.
Same. Yes.
So one of the things, I mean, I've known you for several years through your different creative projects and things that have evolved. right now it's the spoonie calls. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I started doing monthly check-in calls that were broader, I would say, when I had Patreon, so starting maybe 4 years ago. Because of who I am, the group or the crowd of folks who tended to show up was a lot of chronically ill, disabled, neurodivergent queer folks. So it seemed to be a lot of what we were, connecting over. It just was like, oh, that seems to really be what is the thread, right? Or where the real connection and the support is happening. Then in a different course I was offering, I became aware that creating a special space within that course just for the chronically ill and disabled folks to sort of have their own way of connecting within the course was also important to me, right? That they have their own sort of safe place. So I began to have swoonie calls within a course I was offering. I have really shifted them of late, and a lot of my work has shifted, in that they have been removed entirely from any form of financial compensation or capitalism. Mm-hmm. So they are entirely free. They are entirely peer support. It is a space that is lateral. This isn't a service offered. It's not counseling in that way. They really are. I don't use the word community. I have issues with it, but they are for the collective, right? So I show up, everyone who wants to shows up, the links are posted, and they really are just for connecting. What has happened within them for me has been really remarkable. It has created an environment where I would say on average we have 10 to 15 folks who come. Different people come on different ones. You can come as you want and as you are. Most people are in bed in some way or another. There's no pretending. People can actually talk about the lived experiences they're having and with others who understand and know. What I love, I think, most about them is that not everyone is having the same experience and no one is pretending to. So I don't claim to have the same experience as someone who has a different illness than I do, a different disability than I do. So it's not a matchy in that way. But there is a real shared understanding of ableism, of the collective struggle, and there are real points of connection. And the affirmation of being with others who are like you is tremendous. It has, for me, been, I wouldn't say a game changer, but I'm like, it's just my favorite place to be. I love being with this group of people. I just love it. I don't know what else to say. They're my favorite people, and it's my favorite place.
Yeah, the one that I logged into, we had that bit where we talked about how much we love complaining.
Yes.
And it was so validating because sometimes things suck. Yes. Like we're in pain all the time and we're tired no matter how much we sleep. And the people we live with sometimes have the expectation that we're going to get better or it's going to not be so terrible tomorrow.
Right.
But like we were able to laugh about it as a group because it's not haha funny, but it's funny. Like,
yeah, it is.
And I get what you mean about like, there's no pretending in that group because we all speak the same language, even if we don't have the same diagnoses. Mm-hmm. And we were, talking about, things that had been going well. And then I was like, hey, I'm struggling with this thing. And then I felt the need to apologize for being a Debbie Downer. And everyone's like, no, this is really important. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like it was just, we were all over the map, but like, that's normal. Like,
yes,
I love that the calls exist. Mm-hmm. The flip side of that coin is that disability is normal and what we're going through is so normal.
Yes. And
it kind of pisses me off that we have to go like run away to these little hidden enclaves to feel normal about ourselves. Yeah. But I'm so grateful it exists and that, queer folks have to create our own safe spaces. Yes. Spoonies and Crips and autistic people and disabled folks, we have to create our own little safe spaces too. Even though queerness is normal and disability is normal. And like, we've always been here. But
No,
it was a really validating experience. Yeah, we were all in bed, I think, actually.
I'm pretty
like,
sure.
I'm like looking back at that like reference picture in my brain, and I'm like, yep. We were all, a couple people on their couch, but like we were all. There were lots of pillows.
A lot of pillows, a lot of people, just trying
a few
to
pets.
get through. And while I agree that like disability and forms of chronic illness have always existed, I absolutely wish that the world was more accessible and therefore folks could be more integrated into the world in that way. Absolutely. And I still, because of the way it is, it's like it's not safe. And I wouldn't even just say it's not safe. I would say for me, it's not shared. Like some of the people I love most and am even closest to are not sick people, and they don't know that part of me.
Mm-hmm.
They can't actually. And it's not the same as getting to be in it and share it with someone who knows that those are very different experiences. So even if someone who's not sick can sort of normalize it and be like, yeah, you too are human, and this is one part of the human spectrum and condition, the experience I'm having with them isn't the same experience I'm having with a group of folks who know. And for me, there has been something really valuable in that, and really valuable in removing it from capitalism and from support as being something that's outsourced, as opposed to, which I'm not opposed to therapy. I'm not opposed to those models even entirely. Like I go to see a massage therapist and he's a genius, actually. Like I think he's like this like wizard of, I don't know how he's so good at what he does. So it's like, yes, we pay for certain care providers and they're incredibly skilled at what they do, but to be able to say that we actually collectively have resources and wisdom to offer one another without having to outsource everything just to care for one another, I think for me is also a really big part of it, that there is this really profound gathering of wisdom, even if it's just someone saying like, yeah, I get it, can make a huge difference, as well as someone, it's really different when some rando on the internet messages you unsolicited and gives you advice versus being in a space of people that you have come to care for and trust and saying, this is what's going on. And then asking and someone being like, oh yeah, I have actually had success with something, and actually getting ideas from people that you care about and trust. There's been instances of that as well. And I find that to be incredibly valuable. The information sharing.
Yes. Consensual information sharing.
Exactly.
Going back to the whole, like with consent.
Exactly. With a group of people who knows what it's like to get unsolicited advice.
Oh my gosh. I don't vent a lot on Facebook anymore because I was always getting, and it wasn't randos, it was people I know, right? Who were like, oh, well, have you? Yes, I have. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
I live with migraine disease and fibromyalgia, among other, alphabet diagnoses. And when I was really going through it with the migraine attacks that were uncontrolled, someone who used to be my massage therapist, but is not anymore, said, well, come in for a massage. And I didn't have the money at that point in time. And I said, it's not in my budget right now. And she fired back, well, if you really wanted it or really needed it, you could make it work.
Yeah.
You just want to complain and not get better. And I was like, if you knew everything I was trying right now, like you wouldn't say something that crass. And then she like private messaged me and like blew up at me about how I wasn't taking care of my health. I'm like, you don't know the first thing. And it was so insulting and it was very hurtful. And I obviously never went back to her again for a massage. Because like, that's not a safe person that I want to like disrobe for and lay on a table and let her work on my body.
Yep. Yeah. It's super convenient because then if you don't get better, it's your fault.
Right. Yes, I want to be sick. I enjoy this very much. No, I do not. I make the best of it when I can. Yeah. And then recently I've been having trouble getting one of my medications paid for. And someone very well-meaning was like, well, can you go to a free clinic? I was like, they're not going to have a $900 migraine medication at their free clinic. Like, the problem isn't the headache I have right now. Mm-hmm. And even if it was, I have a good doctor who can give me a shot of Toradol when my other medications don't work. Like, the problem right now is like the structure we have created around private insurance, healthcare for profit, Medicaid, loopholes in all of these insurance programs. And it all trickles down to, I can't get my medication paid for.
Yes. Yes.
And I also can't afford it because it's $900.
No. And my favorite is when the suggestions, advice, whatever you want to call it, is offered as if you who've been living with this for an extended period of time haven't considered it. And you're like, this is all I do.
It's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job. Trust me, if there's a loophole, if there's a way, like, this is what I spend my time doing. So it's not like a mystery I haven't solved yet. It is the system. Yeah. And then when they offer it as if you're just going to be like, oh wow, I hadn't thought of that. Like, maybe I could go to this place. You're like, it really, I find it insulting. And it's not just that they don't know, it is also insulting in a way of like, you really don't know, like you have no understanding of the actual amount of time, in addition to the pain, but the actual amount of time I spend researching, attempting to get care, trying to find ways of making this affordable. Like, it is a job to have this body.
Yeah. I live in a rural area, and my hometown had one pharmacy and one pharmacist who worked there who provided meds for like the whole town. Right? She got sick and the pharmacy closed. And see, she had fought all through COVID to keep the pharmacy open, because where else are we going to get meds, right? There's a high concentration of senior citizens on chronic meds. She's like, nope, this town needs a pharmacy. And then she got ill. Like, she's very, very ill. And now my hometown doesn't have a pharmacy. So we have to go to the next town to get our meds. But like, because it's a rural area and they know how important this is, and these are all local people who run these pharmacies, they have worked it out where if you call by Friday at noon for your refill, they will have somebody at the pharmacy in my hometown on Tuesdays for you to come pick up your meds.
Okay.
So like, they're going through this extra legwork. If you call from like a customer from my hometown or the surrounding area and you say, I'm from Enderlin, I need my meds, they'll say, do you want them mailed out or do you want to pick up? So they'll mail them to you with no extra charge, or you go to town and pick them up on Tuesday. So they have taken in an entire town's worth of extra customers, and they're trying to provide meds for everybody. And they're so busy. Like, they are so busy, but they're trying to get it done. And they know everybody by like on a first name basis when they walk in. Like, I walk in and they know who I am. They generally know which meds I'm on. I mean, they have to look them up most of the time, but like, they're really, really good. Like, it's really hard to get service like that in a large city. Like, ton of 5,000 people, ton of 1,000 people, like really, really good service. But I still have to drive an hour into town to see specialists, right? So it's kind of a toss up. You get really good service, but you also have to wait forever to get referrals. So it's a lot of time and effort.
A lot of time and work. Yeah.
Yeah. To just sort of maintain stasis for my meat suit.
Yes.
And then I care for my mother. So I'm also making sure she has her prescriptions, and
yes,
and we can get all of those filled on time. Yeah. And I mean, not to be like, then I'm always apologetic, right? I'm like, well, not to be a total downer. Like, I really enjoy being home, but like, no, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
It's labor, right? Like, it's just work or labor in terms of like the time it takes, the work it takes, the executive functioning it takes. Like, it is a form of labor to do it. It really is.
And our culture doesn't value care labor. You can tell by how much you value nurses and teachers and stay-at-home parents, and even parents who work and then come home and take care of their children. and childcare providers. None of them are like considered valued jobs. So on the flip side of like the work and the effort to keep our bodies running, in one of your writing workshops that I took, one of the prompts talked about routine is ritual. And that was something that really resonated with me, and that has stuck with me since we did that writing prompt. And I know both of us, our creative practices have had to evolve as our bodies and minds and body minds have changed. Can we talk a little bit about creating like pockets of ritual and joy? Because I think one of the things that we could talk about more is like disabled joy, like the inspo porn that is like held up for non-disabled people is like basically us overcoming our own bodies to do normal things. But like we don't talk about our own pockets of joy very much.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the question. For me, there has been a real shift over being aware and intentional over, I would say, publicly not wanting to really trade in what I would call like the commodification of trauma.
Yes, I remember that shift, and that was so profound. And I remember it hit me really in a spot where I needed to be hit.
Yeah, in that way. And the trauma of medical systems and ableism and all of that is included for me in that trauma, right? Which is, it is one way of sort of interfacing with the world or with the public, which is, this is my trauma. These is the horrible things that have happened to me and that I've known. This is the way I sort of create my cohesive narrative as a way of kind of interacting and interfacing with the world and the public that I don't know as individuals, right? And it's not that it's untrue. It's not that those things didn't happen and didn't impact me. It is also that it becomes incredibly defining. And ultimately, my experience in it is that it became, I became to experience it as I was being exploited, that the story then became used by others more than myself. And I was like, I don't like how any of this is. I am not at all opposed to the internet, to social media, and to the ways that it has connected sick folks and disabled folks, myself included. Where I find myself using it more is in the connecting. And in the connecting, I find the disabled joy, right? That is for me, the joy is just like, oh, we're so cool. And I like it so much, right? It's like I was saying in the spoonie calls, right? Just like, it's just my favorite place to be. These are my favorite people. Like, I think we're really, really cool. And I enjoy it so much. And so being able to come to it from that place and to begin to connect even from that place. Yes, you're right. Like, we joked about it. We were all like in that dark humor place of complaining a lot. It's like, how are you this morning? I feel like shit. And that's funny because it's like, the reason it's funny is because it hasn't changed. Like, of course I feel like shit. I'm a sick person. What are we expecting? That it changed overnight? Of course it didn't. But the joy piece for me is that there is something incredibly beautiful about being with others who do know and actually connecting human to human. Like, there's, to me, so much joy in that. And not being alone and actually having an experience of the collective, because it can be so isolating, right? When we are so left behind, so removed from society, no one has to see us because we're all at home. So it's just like, oh, you're just over here and the rest of the world will go about its business. And then it can just be like, I'm all by myself. And it's like, that's not true. So getting to have more and more experiences of connection with others who are also sick, who are also disabled, who are also neurodivergent, and really in ways that are, I would use language even of celebratory, has been really profound and life-changing for me. In the day-to-day, I would say the routines as rituals part, they are really small. And they are, I would say it is one of the things, not in a silver lining way at all. Yeah, not in a sort of like Pollyanna-ish or what illness taught me or any of that garbage, because I don't ascribe to it, but it's just in the way it impacted me. is that it did teach me how to not always be waiting for something to get better in order to be able to enjoy what I have.
Yep.
It just did, because it's not going to get better. And I go through my cycles, like I think all chronically ill people do, which is like, I'll go through my wishful thinking cycles, my like, no, I'm really gonna find that magical cure. Like, of course I do. Like, I think most of us have those moments.
Maybe if I eat more kale.
Yes. I'll just be so desperate in a moment. I'll be like, no, let me do another Google search. There has to be a new migraine drug. I know it, like, of course I go through my moments, but on the whole, there is just an awareness that it's not true that if just around the corner, or if I just got a better job, or if I was just in a different relationship, if I was just had this thing over here, everything would be better. It's like, that's not true. Like, my life is my life, and these things aren't going to change. And what it actually then opens up is that I get to enjoy what I do have. And a lot of time, what I have in front of me, there is a lot of pleasure in. It may not be what I had at one point imagined, but it doesn't mean that it's void of pleasure. Mm-hmm. And so I have become, I would say, in that, really good at seeing and recognizing when something is in front of me or in the very near future that I do want, that I do have a yes to, and being like, well, then, yeah, I'm going to do it. I want it. That does feel good to me. They become ritualized for me in ways of like, I love my morning coffee.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I live for it. I go to sleep at night thinking about it. That's how much I love it. Like, I'm fantasizing about it. I'm like, oh, it's going to taste so good in the morning. I wish it was morning so I could have it now. Like, I can drink coffee through the day, but I love the first cup more than anything else. It does.
Like, you can feel it like soaking into every cell in your body. Yeah.
It tastes better than any other time because it's how I wake up. It tastes delicious. It feels delicious. It is, in that way, a ritual for me. I'm in that moment, I'm quite content. I'm like, oh, this feels really, really good. And I'm really happy that I have this. It's just a small moment and then it's done, but it's a really complete moment for me.
Yeah. For me, it's the morning coffee, but also my dad and I do the crossword puzzle together.
Oh, the crossword. Yes.
Yes. And it's just like, a lot of the time he'll start it and leave it for me, and then I'll work on it. But if there's some left when he comes home for lunch, we'll do it together. Yes. But then, like, the big one on the weekends, we usually sit down together and work on it. And it's just, it used to be when I'd fly home for the holidays, or I'd fly home or drive home once in the summer, it was like, I'm so excited I get to do the crossword with Dad while I'm home. But now it's like, I get to do that every day. Yes. It's like the greatest ever. Yes. And it's just like, it's such a small thing, but it's also the biggest thing. You were talking about always like looking for like the next, just waiting for that next thing, for things to get better. When I was teaching, I was always so exhausted and tired. It was like, I just need to make it to spring break. I just need to make it to summer. And then it was like, I just need to make it to the week off of Thanksgiving so I can rest. I just need to make it to Christmas break. We were always looking forward to the next break so we could either catch up on work or rest. And I just couldn't enjoy what I was doing as much as I wanted to. And when I moved home in June and then spent a lot of time sleeping. That October, when the leaves changed, the first time I drove past, my cousin lives where my grandparents used to live. The first time I drove past that farmstead and noticed the leaves, I had to pull my car over and just cry. Like, it was the first time that I had the space to feel some kind of emotion other than stress and doom. Because like, I had slowed down enough to actually like feel my feelings in real time. And I just sat and cried about leaves. And it was like, oh, this is good.
Yes.
Like, this might look like a weird reaction to other people, but this is important. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so being able to, there are things about teaching that I miss, but not enough to go back to it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because I am mentally healthier than I was when I was working. Yeah. I wouldn't go back to not being able to feel my emotions in real time for anything.
Yes. Oh, I feel that. Yeah.
So like you said, making that a silver lining of being so sick that I was, scared and, not knowing what was wrong with me. That's not a good feeling. I don't want a silver lining that at all. Like, that was not a good time in my life. But being able to be home with family and experience things, like that's good. It's good to be with people.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. There are times where I just feel like, and I understand in moments where there's not the option to do so in terms
Right.
of survivalism, but there are so many times where I just think like, just stop, right? Like there's so much hard programming, I think, in us that we're like required to keep at something.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, I do think a lot of times, and those of us who are sick know this, it's like the choice is taken away from us.
Yeah, it wasn't really a choice at that point. It was like,
exactly.
I couldn't even use my arms anymore. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not coming to work for 2 months.
What it has really instilled in me is in many, many ways, the realization that like, if you want something to not be this way, then like stop, just stop it. And not like cut out the behavior, but like you can just actually not participate in that way anymore. And it really is, for me, like an overwhelmingly startling realization because of how deep the programming is, that it's just like, gotta do it. What's the old, like, time to make the donuts, like commercial of just like, keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. That to have those, and for me too, it was absolutely forced of just like, well, the capacity isn't there, so I will be forced to stop.
Yeah, I was trying to make a connecting flight last night, and I did make the connection, but I had very little time to make it. I was in the Minneapolis airport, and I was thrown back to the last time I had a very short connection in Minneapolis, and I was like, I ran, right? I ran from one end of the airport to the other, and yesterday I was physically unable to run. Like, I could not make my legs go any faster than a fast walk. And even a fast walk, my calves and my Achilles were so tight that a fast walk was like, yep, this is my limit and I'm going to be regretting it later. That hadn't happened to me before. I was like, oh, I can't run. I mean, I can run with my dog if it's been warm out and the circumstances are different, but like today I can't run. That's new. I don't have time to think about it. I got to get on a plane. But it was just one of those things where, like, there isn't a choice.
There isn't a choice. Yep.
Like, my body has made this choice for me, and I just have to go with it and hope that they haven't closed the boarding doors.
Yep.
And it was like, I'm all alone with this feeling. Yeah. But, like, it's fine. Like, yeah, I wasn't surprised. It was just one of those, like, oh, okay, yep, this is where I am now.
This is it. Yep.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed our conversation.
Me too.
You're marvelous, Isabel. I think you're great.
Oh, I think you're great. I really do.
So if listeners want to find you, you're on Substack now, right?
I am on Substack.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. I'm glad we were able to connect.
Me too.
So yeah, enjoy your rest.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of HORF. To view the complete show notes and all the links mentioned in today's episode, or to get a full transcript of the episode, visit hoorfpodcast.com. That's HOORF podcast.com. Before you go, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you can receive new episodes right when they're released. And if you're enjoying our podcast, I'd love to have you leave us a review in Apple Podcasts. Reviews are one of the major ways that Apple ranks their podcasts, so even though it only takes you a few seconds, it really does make a difference for us. Become a patron. For $3 a month, you can support the creation of this podcast, pay my editor, and join a community of fellow caregivers out here just doing our best. Thank you again for joining me, Elle Billing, in this episode of HORF. Until next time, be excellent to each other. Whorf is hosted by Elle Billing at Elle and Wink. Audio editing by Ricky Cummings at Ricky Poo. Music composed by Ricky Cummings. Whorf is a production of Elle and Wink Art Studio, all rights reserved. Whorf Podcast can be found on social media channels at Whorf Podcast, at HOORF Podcast.